and welcome to Knit All the Things. My name is Laurel. I'm also known as West Maven on Instagram, Ravelry, and here. If you're new, this is a space where I talk about all the things I'm knitting, all the things I want to knit, all things yarn, just all the things. And if you're returning, welcome back, knitting bestie. I can't wait to catch up with you. In this week's episode, I'm so excited to share with you my finished Eva Cardigan by Petite Knit. This was definitely a labor of love. Focus on labor. I don't think I'm much of a cardigan knitter, but I will explain to you all of my misgivings and things that happened along the way, as well as any tips if you plan on casting on this beautiful cardigan. I have some updates on an Entrelac pattern that I've been playing with, as well as new cast on one that I did not swatch for, and spoiler alert, didn't go well. I also have a little bit of something I want to talk about. My knitting indecision is real right now. I cannot make a decision to save my life. So maybe you guys can help me out. Maybe you're feeling the same way. So grab your knitting, get cozy, and let's go. Okay, so let's start with what I am wearing. I am wearing the Eva Cardigan. This is a pattern by Petite Knit, and it is a top-down cardigan. You have some nice details like the 2x2 ribbing on the sleeves, the hem and a collar, and it has a really nice, unusual construction. So you basically cast on this back part and you knit your shoulder increases, and then you place the back on hold. You then pick up and knit two front panels, and then you pick up around the sleeve and then continue back and forth. And it just has a really nice, I feel, shoulder fit. This is a very similar fit to Petite Knit's Lion pattern. It comes in both junior and adult, and I really, really like it. So let me stand up so you can see this a little bit better. I used La Bien Aimé's Cory worsted in the color Coquelicot, and I really love this color. I think for a hand-dyed yarn, I did not do anything special. I just knit straight. I believe it was all from the same lot, but there's no like big pooling or anything in this colorway. It has a nice tonal color and I really like it. Here's some things I'm not loving, and I'm gonna sit down in a second, but just so you can see. When I button up the sweater, which these are vintage buttons that I bought, and this actually was kind of my jumping off point for the cardigan. I got really excited about the buttons and the yarn, and everything was just like a perfect storm there. But what I'm not loving, and I think this can all be fixed. So if you see here, you have this like indent where the ribbing is, which I think is totally natural and fine. I think I would like to reblock it just so that it's a little more straight. I also knit her champagne cardigan, and it does have the ribbing, but it doesn't kind of do this little poof. So I think I will just kind of be a little more aggressive on my blocking there. And then I think the sleeve length is really good. I actually would hate for it to be any shorter, because when I reach, it definitely comes like right to my wrist, which I wouldn't want it any shorter than that. So I'm gonna grab the champagne cardigan because I think it's nice to see the comparison between the two in case you're wanting to pick one of her patterns, but you're not quite sure what your preference would be. This is a raglan style sweater. It's knit from the top down, and then you have some very big portions of 1x1 ribbing, and then you do a double knit button band, which I really love with this sweater. I think it looks really, really nice. Of the two, they're both oversized. They are really different in fit in that, again, this one has kind of more of a nice fitted shoulder, which I think is nice. When I was knitting this, I got a little bit nervous because I tried it on, and as you can see, the button band, especially from, I guess, the nape of the neck down, like that is quite a bit of fabric that you're creating with your cardigan. And I was really worried that it was going to be too open. And in fact, I feel like the opposite is a bit true. This one's definitely a higher, more closed off V-neck as opposed to the champagne cardigan. And I think that it ended up being like, obviously, I think she really does a great job in her construction of her sweaters and her patterns. This one, I think, would be okay if you're like an advanced beginner. I do think, and I've had people comment before on even the lion sweater, where the shoulder construction seems a bit confusing. Because I've already done it before, I really had no trouble. But again, it's that you're knitting flat, you pick up and knit the shoulder, and then you do the like kind of 3D-ness of it all, where you come back and you pick up around the shoulder and then continue along the back. And again, you pick up around the shoulder and then continue to the front. I think that can be a bit confusing if you haven't done it before. But like I said, if you literally do what I just said, you'll be fine. I really don't like purling. So while I like having another cardigan, I don't love the purling aspect of knitting one. I think I struggled for a while on getting my tension on the purl side to be nice and uniform, which I haven't really experienced before, but for whatever reason, I was really showing a lot of rowing out in this one. So I ended up switching right after, I think, the shoulders. I switched to a combination purl, which is where instead of knitting and wrapping the yarn up and over your needle, you wrap it under, so it's a shorter distance when you're doing that purl. And it creates that stitch to then be twisted on your needle. So when you go on the knit side, you're then knitting through the back loop to untwist the stitches. So I think that fixed my kind of problem. It also is a lot more comfortable for me to knit in that way for my hands. The combination purl is much easier to kind of just pick just like you would knitting. So that was a little better. I really actually would normally say I don't like ribbing at all, but once I actually hit the ribbing parts of the sweater, I was kind of happy and excited to get to that part because I knew it was close to being done. I did pause after I got to a certain point and pick up and knit. I'm trying to think of what I did. I think I knit both the sleeves and then I went back to the sweater, and I think the sleeves put me in a much better mood and a much better place with this because I'm really I felt like I was very fast with them. It only took a day or so each. So that was super fast. So I was knitting in the round all of a sudden, and that was just like a nice break from the knitting flat. If you were to knit this sweater, if you chose to knit this sweater, I would say that it is a true DK weight as far as being a little bit more breathable. You could use a worsted weight with it, maybe, or you could add a little mohair if you wanted, but it's going to definitely stiffen up the fabric quite a bit. This one is a much more, I'm trying to think of the word, drapey fabric compared to this one. This one is a very heavy one, and it has, I think, the same gauge, but I added a mohair, and the yarn is definitely a little bit thicker. And so this one is much more like almost like a jacket to me, where this one is a true sweater. It is nice and warm. I'm sitting in my like office room of my house, and there's a ton of windows, and even though it's cold outside, this room gets quite warm during the day, especially if the sun comes out. So it almost is something I almost don't want to wear right now just because of the temperature of the room, but it's nice. I think I will wear this a lot. I absolutely am in love with the color. I almost want to run out and get more of this yarn because I really like it. It's a really nice blend. This is, again, La Bien Amaze Cori worsted, which I believe is Corridel and maybe a Falkland Merino blend. I'm not 100% on that. But it has a little bit of toothiness. Like, it's certainly not the softest yarn, but it is soft. But I think my kid, who is a little sensitive to anything at all which he would think is scratchy, would probably not like this. I like it. What else? I've already worn this a few times, and like I said, I'm really in love with the color. I think the button band turned out really nice. You cast off knitwise, so you have this really nice edging, and I think that just adds to like the finishing looking so nice. And I'm obsessed with how these buttons turned out with the cardigan. I really think it's nice. Like they show up without being the center of attention, if you will. And they kind of remind me, because they're opaque and a little bit transparent in spaces, they kind of remind me almost like a little candy or something. I think they're really nice. So I'm super happy with this. I would maybe knit this again. I think of the two now that I've had, well, I haven't had a lot of time wearing this one, but with my champagne cardigan, I would 100% knit again, even though, again, I'm not a huge fan of the purling, but I would definitely consider knitting it again because it was just, like, I really loved the double knit button band. I think that looks really nice. And I considered trying to figure out if I could do that with this one, but I just don't think you can because it's really creating quite a bit of your material for your cardigan, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling. I'm gonna apologize. I've been sick, and so I feel like I have a little congestion still, and so I'm sorry if I sound a little bit strange today. I'm strange all the time, who knows? Okay, so Eva Cardigan by Petite Knit. I highly recommend. I think it really turned out beautifully, and I know a bunch of people have knit this, and I can really see why, because it's a very classic, like, scholarly cardigan. Next up, I have been working on a few things. I really feel like I've been a little bit all over the place in terms of knitting. I think personally, there's been a lot of like just random things going on. At the beginning of the year, I had gotten in a car accident. I'm fine. My car is less fine. And then this week, I had a flat tire. It's just been like nonstop with car things. And when I went to put away the spare after having that fixed, I put the tire in and it like caught my finger and my whole finger bruised. I don't think it's broken. Like it feels a little tender, but it is fine, but it's ugly and a little swollen. So that's not been the best for knitting. You don't really need who needs a middle finger when you're knitting? So it's just been like weirdness. But I have been knitting a lot. Let's start with what you have seen, I think, already. I really wanted to knit something from Larky Bagger's book, Knit It Out. I have been really drawn to Entrelac, and I really have wanted to knit something Entrelac. I'm really glad that I did not choose a sweater first because I think it wouldn't have turned out very well. I'll show you why. Because I'm new at this technique, I feel like my knitting looks really messy, and I'm not saying that as a like, oh no, it like Entrelac is messy looking. The back of it is messy. It's right now I have it all kind of like bowed before I can like tuck in ends and stuff, but it's just messy looking and chaotic, and I don't know if I need more of that in my life right now. But here it is. So I'm just doing the bit by bit pillow. It's very simple Entrelac. She teaches you like the starting triangles, then the right leaning and left leaning rows, and then you just make it however you want, basically. And so I think I'm about done with this panel. I have to do the like finishing top row, and then I can work on the back for just like a little pillow. I am using scraps right now. However, I know a lot of them because they're mostly from things I've already, I mean, it's scraps. So I've used all this yarn before, but a lot of it has actually been in sweaters. I'm kind of questioning a couple of them, but a lot of them have been in sweaters. I know that I knit like the Badger and Bloom with this color and a few other ones. I have this cosmic tie-dye that was left over. It's by Wandering Flock. I wanted to point it out because it's such a pretty mohair, and I think it would look so nice if somebody wanted to do like a natural color held with it, because it has like such a subtle, beautiful effect. This kind of square rectangle is in it. It has like yellow, pink, and blue throughout it, and I think it's really pretty. I also did a different mohair that was like a pink and blue kind of combo one. So I believe with all of them, I'm holding a mohair and then like a DK worsted weight-ish with yarn with it. This one's Hedgehog Fiber Tweedy. So I just had fun. Like it definitely takes way more concentration while I was getting my tire fixed. This is what came with me. I got a lot done while I was waiting. But yeah, now that I've knit this, I really think it would be fun to do a cardigan. I wouldn't do these colors for myself. I think I would stick with darker colors. I do like that all of them have a bit of mohair, so I would want to incorporate that. It would be very simple. And I believe in her book, basically she has you just knit panels, just like I'm doing with the pillow, and then you assemble it all later. So it would be something that I could like start now, and maybe it's just something that I add a little bit to as I finish stuff throughout the year, and then just add a little bits and pieces to it. But I think it's nice. I'm really excited to get this done. Have it as a little pillow here. And maybe I'll do a sweater. Again, it's messy. I know you're not going to see this, and I get that I can also weave it in the ends and we won't care. But for some reason, it's like a little off-putting. I think I need like calmness, and this feels a little chaotic to me. But this is the Bit by Bit Pillow by Lurky Bagger. I would say most of her patterns, especially in this book, are not what I would call beginner friendly. But with the drawings that she has in this one and the instructions, I feel like you could easily do this as a beginner, or beginner to Entrelac, if you will. Maybe not 100% beginner knitter, but to Entrelac, I think it's not that hard to pick up. And it's actually surprisingly, and I feel like this is with most knitting techniques, it feels harder and looks harder than it ends up being. So this one I was like very intimidated by, but once I've kind of gotten going, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a very simple, you need to know like the 4 basic rows, the right leaning, left leaning, edges, top and bottom, and you're good to go, off to the races. So it is empowering to know that it's a new technique that I could incorporate in various things, or like start planning for a sweater or something in the future. So that's been nice. The other thing I was working on, one of my kind of goals this year is to use yarn and stash. And I have had this pattern since 2020. When it first came out, I immediately bought it. It was actually, I think, one of the things I had knit maybe 2 sweaters prior to this. And I remember thinking like, this is the coolest cardigan of all time. It is Anne Wenzel's diamond jacket. And I was really drawn to it, especially after making this cardigan, because there's a lot of knitting. It's very deceptive. Like, it is basically a lot of garter with a trellis cable pattern. This is not a good one to look at, which I'll show you in a minute. So I cast on, and I used the recommended needles for the yarn and the pattern, which was a US size 10. And as I was knitting along, or 6mm, and as I was knitting along, I was like, this looks sloppy. Like, you can't really tell the cable so well. Like, you kind of can, but you kind of can't. And it was just looking messy. I also kind of failed at the yarn I chose. This is Knit Picks Wonder Fluff, and it's in the colorway, I think it's like charcoal heather or something like that. And because of the heathering, it's really not ideal for what I'm using it for. If it was solid, it would be perfect. But because it's heathered, it's really not lending to it being a very forceful pattern coming out. I will also say that since this is not a size inclusive pattern, we won't spend a ton of time on this, but it is one that I have just really wanted to try out. So I knit with the size 10 and did all of the like increasing, and was not happy with the fabric. It's very holey and you can't really see the cables. And I could tell it was way off gauge. So these balls, it's like I have 9,000 of these balls. That's the other reason. It takes up a ton of space. The yarn itself is like this much yarn, and it's been in my stash kind of just taking up room, and I'd like to just knit it and actually just get it out of the way. So that was another motivator. So I switched to a US size 9, which I think is a 5mm. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe 5.5, but you can certainly see the diamond pattern quite a bit better in this. The gauge is much better. It still is a bit holey, but not as bad. And I feel like it's getting closer to what I'm looking for. I may pause again and actually use a size 8. You might say, hey, Laurel, why wouldn't you swatch for that? I'm using this as my swatch. Like, these are my swatches. They'll get ripped out eventually if need be, but these really are what I'm using as my swatches. Like, you can already tell how much different they are. And this one has quite a bit more rows, I think, going. Because I had started on, there's like, this is the back panel, you knit the back, and then you kind of go straight, and then you just go straight down. And so I'm kind of at that point right now. And it is very, very easy to remember, very easy to follow. Since I am in the increases, I kind of have the pattern up on my computer, and I'm just like checking off with like editing like little highlight PDF thing, so that I can keep track of where I am. It would be much easier if I just had printed it out, but we don't have a printer. So this is what we're doing. But I'm enjoying how it's turning out. Again, I wish this was more size inclusive. I think when I thought about knitting in it last year, and I had reached out and she said, yeah, I'm trying to be more size inclusive with my patterns. However, I'm not going to go back and do any of my older ones. So unfortunately, this one goes up to, I don't know if it's a bust size or the sweater size. This is where I'm a little confused. It's only in 2 sizes. It's like small, medium, or large, extra large, I think is the sizing. And this is a size 120 centimeters. So I don't know what that is in inches. See, now we're going the other way. I have no idea. Or 147. So it's meant to be kind of oversized, slouchy jacket, and I think I will like it when it's done. I actually like that it's just a ton of knitting and kind of just deceptive little 1x1 cables. So that's been nice. I've just been messing around with this when I have time to actually sit kind of in front of my computer to do that. But like I said, I wish it was a little more size inclusive, so we're not gonna spend a ton of time on that one. Okay, now I will say, if you do look on Ravelry, there have been some people have used this yarn for the pattern. So I really don't think that the yarn is the problem. I think it's the gauge at which I'm knitting it, which is, I'm just trying to figure out what makes the cables pop the most and can handle this weird heathering that I'm dealing with. Okay, next up, I have my half and half triangles wrap, you guys. I've made so much progress, and then I moved my stupid progress thing, so we won't be able to tell. But trust me, I have. I moved it, and I was like, why did I do that? We're making progress, though. This is the half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern, and I'm using Super Orange and Bright Flamingo eventually, and it's just been nice for these like gray days, which I say that, and it's so bright today, which is amazing. I'm not complaining at all. It's nice to not see a gray cloud for a minute. But I've made some progress. It's looking more wrap-like instead of like a very long scarf. So I'm excited about that. I really would like to set a goal to just finish this one this year. I've actually realized as I was going through my knits, I did an everything I knit in 2024 video, which I will link to this one. But as I was preparing for that and trying to figure out all the different things, I realized that I only had 2 unfinished cast-ons from last year. This being one of them, which I finished. And then the second one being my Smocket shawl by Stephen West Knits. So let me grab that really quick. So I used my hand spun on this one, and I got the hand spun from I spun it from Banshee Fiber Arts, and I have no idea what the colorway was, but there you go. It's like a pink, mauve, a light blue, and a little bit of a green and a gold. I really think it's very pretty. And this is what it looks like knit up. It looks really nice. It's a beautiful fade. Here's where I'm considering. So because I don't want to continue on with projects I'm not enjoying, I'm trying to decide what this should be. I am to a point where I could just go straight for a little while and then do some decreases, just kind of as the pattern says. Make it just a short little, what should I call it? Little scarflet. And maybe not do the smocking and just call it a day, like just be done with it. I could continue on and just do the shawl as is, because I really think the smocking is really beautiful and I think it would look nice with this. Part of my hesitation is that because this is like maybe I think this is the first yarn I ever spun. It's a 2-ply and it is like a light fingering / lace weight. It's very, very light. I'm kind of wondering if it wouldn't be better if I rip this out and then hold it double and knit something a little different. And if that's the case, maybe I would do just like one of the wearable cowls, one of Drea Renee Knits ones, either her like DRK Everyday cowl or Inclinations cowl, or like one of the ones that she uses her hand spun Traveler's cowl, because I'm just not 100% sold on this. And I don't know if it's just because it's so wispy or what, because it is quite lacy and thin in some places, and I just don't know. Like, it's already a pretty good size, so if I just started decreases, it would be like a pretty good little like shawl, right? So let me know what you think I should do with this. Should I rip it out and just do something else? Should I bite the bullet and just do some decreases and be done with it? Because I don't think the smocking is going to happen. Maybe it will, but I kind of feel like it may not. And I don't, like I said, I'm trying to not have leftover whips forever. I would like to like kind of work my way through my stash a little more this year and all these things. So let me know what you think of that. And on those kind of same thoughts, I spun this yarn last year. I finished it in, I think, March. And then a bunch of like family tragedies happened and I just didn't spin again. So this week I pulled out the wheel and dusted it off a little bit, and it's not rewound, so it does look pretty bad, but it is also a little bit sad looking. I just haven't spun in a while, so getting back into the motion of it and all those things, I really didn't find it like riding a bike. It's taking me a minute to like get my consistency down and all those things. So this is the same colorway as for this, and I have one more bobbin to do because it's a 3-ply. I got this fiber from Fat Cat's Knits on Etsy, and I bought a lot of fiber from her. I had bought this kind of 3 colorways. I'll put them on the screen or I'll put them below, but they're very blue and purple heavy with some green. And I don't know that these are like colors I wear. I don't think they're terrible, but it's really, really purple. A lot, probably more than I thought it was going to be. And so I'm not sure if I am as excited about the yarn as I once was. This is it was going to be for a traveler like shawl or cowl or one of those patterns by Andrea Mowry. But because I think I didn't actually immediately cast on, I just lost some of my excitement for that project. I also just don't know, like, if I was doing it to be like part of the excitement of like a knit along or what. I don't know, but right now it's not feeling like bringing me joy. So I'm kind of debating on just kind of finishing up this next skein or just finishing the yarn, because I think the practice is good for me, but maybe destashing or something, because I'm kind of wanting to just like refresh my space so that I can get in a better place with making decisions. And with that being said, I had mentioned that I wanted to possibly cast on the Antique Filigree pattern by Rachel Ilsley, and I think it's a beautiful sweater. It is a 2-color colorwork sweater, and one of my most favorite knits that I wore last year was a Rachel Ilsley. It's called Hoarfrost, and I really enjoyed wearing it. It's one that fits really well, and I was reflecting on that thinking I should knit another one of her patterns. So this one caught my eye. And I really have been all over the place with trying to decide the colors. So I've been a little all over the place with trying to decide colors for this sweater. I do think I want the color work to be a fade or a gradient or broken up so that it's several colors instead of just one color. I bought this Diamond Lane shed. It's a fingering weight yarn, 60% merino, 40% Romney, in the colorway Martin, which is like a very navy blue. And I bought this on the way to Flock Fiber Festival last year. And then during Sacred Sheep, I bought a bunch of skeins of Spin Cycle, which I wanted to do something with. I feel like I want to use the Diamond Lane with Spin Cycle in some sort of sweater. And so I had purchased Witching Hour, Mizuzu, Flashback, and Vesuvius Plum. And I'm just not sure. I have been closer on thinking these three rather than this one because this is more navy like the main color and I just can't, I don't think it's gonna pop out. So I'm really afraid that if I used it in the color work, it would just hide. That being said, the Mizuzu has quite a bit of variation for this skein, but it's a very slow fade and I'm not sure. But kind of all of them are. Kind of all of them. Like Witching Hour, this particular skein is mostly like a burnt orange, a little green, and a little bit of gray. And the Vesuvius Plum is a lot of purple and a lot of green. Like I would say that's kind of like the main colors. So maybe that's okay. I do think that in the pattern, there is like a top kind of colorwork section, a middle, and a bottom. So I think I would do like top and bottom in the brighter colors with this maybe in the center. But it is, again, that dark color, and I'm just not sure it will stand out enough. So this is where I've been talking about knitting it, indecision. It's not that I don't want to knit the sweater. Like, I like it a lot. I really am like very happy with this yarn. So it's not that. I don't know if I'm just feeling strongly about it one way or another. So I feel like I should just wait until I have that grab to do something. But that's kind of like where I keep finding myself. Like I'll think of a project and go, oh, this is really great. But like then it kind of fizzles. Or I really want to use my stash. I have 2 sweater quantities of like a gray kind of tweedy-like yarn that I've just been looking for the right project. I feel like it should probably be a cardigan rather than a pullover, but nothing is grabbing at me right now. So it's just kind of that feeling of like, what's next? I don't know if you guys have been feeling that way or not, but I decided to do a little digging and look at what I was doing last year. So last year, I noticed in January especially, I just ended up knitting a lot of accessories, like a lot of hats and things, and maybe I'm just needing to break it up a little bit and not cast on a sweater right now until I'm feeling that like excitement again. I also wonder if it's just me needing to broaden my horizons in that when I'm looking at a pattern, like look at what it could possibly be than what the pictures are like sharing originally. Meaning like with the Antique Filigree, like rather than just looking for like 2 colors, like how can I add more color to it or add something that will be exciting to me. So that's just kind of where I'm at. Sorry for the rant, but I am kind of curious if anybody else is feeling that. Like, I don't know that it's a dip in Mojo because I'm still like enjoying like even just grabbing my Pearl Soho half and half wrap and knitting on that. Like any knitting is knitting and I enjoy it, but I'm kind of like not excited about a project like in the way that I normally am. So would love to hear your thoughts. Would love to hear if you guys are feeling that way or not. And yeah. So as far as maybe this will be a cast on. Maybe I will stare at it long enough to where I'm super excited. I don't know. But that's kind of what I've been like thinking about in my head. I also pulled out like all of my yarn, cleaned out the cabinet, put everything back. And so I've been, I think, reminding myself how much stash I have and how many sweater projects I had in mind. And it's just maybe a matter of like too many choices, like not being able to decide like which one to start is part of it. So I don't know. I would love to hear from you guys what you're thinking. As far as anything else, I have been doing a little, I've made a couple of purchases. I went to Portland Leather Goods. If you are from Portland or ever stopping through, Portland Leather Goods has a warehouse. And so I went to their warehouse over last weekend and picked this up. It's just a little, I think they call it their taco pouch with a cute little tassel. I want to say it was under $25. It felt like it was very reasonable, but it's perfect. It's a perfect notion size. There's my scissors and darning needle and stitch markers and an extra crochet hook and all of that. Tape measure. So I thought I would share that with you guys because I think it's a perfect size and it's super cute. Of course I had to get black. They also had a really pretty burgundy kind of oxblood color, which I thought was really pretty, that I've been still thinking about. But I love a good tassel. Who doesn't? Who doesn't love a tassel? And then, because I've been knitting this charcoal yarn, I purchased another one of these because sometimes my kids play with them. So I've had this one for quite a long time. This is just a light. Turns on. And I've recommended it before. This is their original version, and then they have an upgraded version. So I'm going to tell you what the difference is because I really didn't know when I was buying it, what is the difference? Why would it matter? Okay, so for the old one, you turn on each light with its own little clicker, and then you have the different light settings, which is a yellow light or a white light on the top. But you can have one light on. I often actually only use one of the lights on, just because that's all I need. And then it lasts forever. I feel like I rarely charge this. But it was acting weird. And I realized it actually was just that it needed charged. But because sometimes I like to use this and somebody else is using it when I want to, I got a second one. And so I got the same company, and the upgraded neck reading light version is a little different. So this one doesn't have any button on the back, and instead you have one button for turning it on, and then one for brightness and one for color. So, and it's a much yellower light than the other one. So maybe if you're I don't want any of that blue light at all, it would be better. But this one, you do not have an option of one light. So I thought I would share that with you because I've shared them before. And I really think it's $20 or right around 20 to 22, depending on whatever sale or whatever they have going on. But I really like this one. I haven't had any problems. And again, I thought this one was acting strange, but then I think it just needed charged because back to normal. This one, the older one, is a bit thicker on the back. They aren't the lightest. I think there is a knitting one and maybe it is lighter. I don't actually know because I haven't used it, but they're not bad. They are, you can feel them on you, but they're not heavy. But there's that. Okay, so I watched School Spirits. It's on Netflix right now. I guess it has another season coming out on Paramount, which kind of I don't have, so now I'm ugh, bummer. But it's about this girl who dies, and it's about this girl who dies. They don't know where her body is. They don't know what happened to her, how she died, or any of these things. And so it's kind of her journey stuck in her high school, working through that and trying to figure out what happened to herself with the help of one of her friends. And it's a very light watch. And it kept me guessing. I really they did a great job of this show of pointing the blame and you being by the time that episode was done, you're yeah, they definitely did it. As they're building the case, right? So I always enjoy ones that they just do a really good job of planting seeds of doubt and really spending time with that type of storyline. And then I'm currently listening to Lucy Foley's The Midnight Feast, which I really like her books a lot. and I really tend to like binge them. Like as soon as I get them, I always get them from the library, and as soon as I get them, I like finish them in a few days. So that's been my current like listen and knit. Those are my recommendations for now. I will be back in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we have moved through this knitting indecision. If you guys have any words of advice, let me know. I will be linking my Everything I Knit video in case you haven't seen that after this one. And if we're not yet knitting besties, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video, because it tells YouTube that other fiber enthusiasts like yourself enjoy this type of content. Until next time, make some yarn magic. Bye!